You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
Mutumbu, mama yo, na ya boy go get her. Blue Jay Brothers. Mama you kind, mama you're beautiful, mama you good, mama you're wonderful. No woman like you, mama. No woman like you, mama. Thank God for you, mama. Thank God for you, mama. 'Cause you gave me life, oh mama. Queen of my life, oh mama. I go love you for life, oh mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh mama. From small beginning, I never forget all the suffer when you suffer for me. Oh yeah, yeah. All the pain and the troubles where I put you through. I remember when money no be there and chop no be there for her. You be the try your best. You go run around to find us something where we go chop. When I dey sick, you know the sleep. You go the cry all night. You go hold me tight, start to pray, say God make you have my oh Lord. Ooh, I want you choma. I'm funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bumming na better yeah bumma choma. Ain't na chinum ya ga choma. Mama, I want you choma. I'm funga na better yeah funga choma. I'm bumming na better yeah bumma choma. Ain't na chinum ya ga choma. Ya ga choma, mama. Ain't na chinum ya ga choma. Chinum ya ga choma. Oh, you gave me life, oh mama. Queen of my life, oh mama. I will love you for life, oh mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh mama. Hey, are you there? Pina, no one there. Ale mama, ale mama, ale mama, ale mama. You're my motivation. You gave me the best education, mama. The song where I sing I'm for you. Now it's special dedication to you. Oh yeah. I know say every night and day you pray say make a mama. The God where you the pray I'm for heaven don't give me this inspiration, mama. The song where I sing I'm for you. Now to show my appreciation to you. Be a warrior, choma. I funga na better, yeah, funga choma. I'm bombing na better, yeah, bomber choma. Ngana chinum ya ga choma. Mama, warrior, choma. I funga na better, yeah, funga choma. I'm bombing na better, yeah, bomber choma. Ngana chinum ya ga choma. Chinum ya ga choma. Chinum ya ga choma. Ya ga choma. You gave me life, mama, queen of my life, queen of my life. I will love you for life. I will love you for life. 'Cause you love me so, mama. You gave me mama, mama, queen of my life, mama. I will love you for life, oh mama. 'Cause you love me so, oh mama, mama. Selelele, ale mama, 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 selelele, ale mama. Oh, that's so. That's so. Mother's Day. That's so.
Hello, hello, good evening, fellow Ambazonians. Good afternoon, viewers, wherever you're watching from. If you're watching from the US, good afternoon. Good evening if you're watching from home fronts and sub-Saharan Africa and most of Europe. Good morning if you're watching from Asia, South Asia, Australia. Welcome to the Horizon, the voice of the Ambazonian women. Today, I have two great guests, powerful Ambazonian women, and we have the first appearance of one of our guests today. And I can't wait for us to have a great conversation and discussion about Ambazonian history, where we started from, where we are. And this part of this history of Ambazonia is going to be a three-part series. And we will be starting this series today with the two great women that will be joining me very soon. And we will move on to talk about the current events and the rampant killing of Ambazonians within our territory by La République du Cameroon. So we're going straight into the program and let's have our two great women, Dr. Lobati and Prof. Bridget. You are both welcome to the show. And I'd just like to thank you, Prof. Bridget, for making your first appearance on the horizons. And I hope this become a pattern, this becomes something we do more often. Prof. Bridget, you are highly welcome to the horizon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And Dr. Lobati, we are here again and to discuss and talk about Amazonian and to remind ourselves where we come from, what is happening, and why we must stay on course. As the motto of the women says, we are staying the course. Welcome once again to the horizon.
Thank you, um, Lady Casey, for bringing us on again on your show. I want to just I shout hello to everyone, those at the home front, those in ground one, diaspora scattered all over the world, Asia, Europe, the Americas, and globally, whether you're in Australia or in China or wherever you can see us. It's nice being with you and being part of the women group again and women presenting our story as it is so that others may hear and know how we feel and the brunt that we carry as women, mother, and wives and sisters and maybe grandmothers.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say this is a special show of the Horizon. The Horizon is usually every Friday at 6 p.m. Amber time. Um, Due to some technical issues, we couldn't have the show on Friday. So we are having this special Horizon show. And I want to thank all our viewers for joining and make sure you share to all the groups and all your contacts and invite people to join and watch us and let us get into reviving our spirits to enable us staying the course as we discuss Amazonia's journey and current events. Prof. Bridget, do you have one or two you want to say, particularly as this is your first appearance on the horizon? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lady Casey. Lady Casey. Greetings to everybody. Greetings to Ambazonian women all over the globe. We really are happy to be here. I know this is actually my home, but I've been busy, as you know, with other issues and appearing on other programs. I want to particularly appreciate our valiant ARFs on home front. Send a shout out to our refugees and IDPs, most of whom are women bearing the brunt of this crazy war that we are facing, the war of our independence. And I just want to say that I am really, really delighted to be here once again. As you know, my name is Bridget Thibault, and I'm from the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, USA. But I'm also the executive assistant to the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. And so it gives me really great pleasure to be here on the women's platform to share some thoughts with you and to enlighten some of us who may not necessarily be very aware of certain historical facts. And so I am really pleased to be here, and hopefully by the time we end the show, we would have accomplished that goal. Thank you again, everyone. And I'm delighted to be here with my able sister and colleague, Dr. Lobati. Thank you.
Lost her.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great remark. I told you, viewers, that I am accompanied by great Ambazonian women today. Um, Dr. Lobati, do you have any one or two things you want to say before we get into the main subject of our conversations today?
Oh, thank you again. I don't think I'm a guest anymore. I think once you're here one, two time, you become a household member and a family to the horizon. So I hope we can really delve. There's just too much that we can talk about, but I hope we can anchor our boat of horizon today at one spot, and then next week you people can move the boat and anchor it somewhere else, and next week the other week, so that way we get a holistic picture of what the different things that we have could be, and that we should know, and that we can re-educate our people. Because to be honest, our fathers who and our grandfathers who were involved in this process are almost all gone, and so we are left with just archive documents that we can find. Hopefully, some of them were not burnt with all the archives that were burned in Yaoundé, or the ones that have been torn or shredded, but we can get some information where we can glean into some of these things that transpired at the dawn of our supposedly independence or sovereignty that was supposedly granted to us Southern Cameroonians and as well Northern Cameroonians.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we would get into our conversation for today. And I'll just remind our viewers that as you join, please ensure to share to all your friends and followers to join us. This is the voice of the Ambazonia women, the horizon on ABC Amber TV. Um, Pro- Prof. Bridget, I would come to you, and I just want to ask these general questions before we get into the specific details of our history, specific details of some aspects of our history. So, according to you, what is the importance of the Ambazonia history, the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian history?
Um, that is a very interesting question. One that we've actually encountered a couple of times, because most people in what is known as Cameroon are confused by what is going on. They are confused and don't understand why we have to fight. And I think it is because of ignorance. It is because they don't really know what is happening. And so the importance of British Southern Cameroon's history and why we must stand for our rights cannot be underestimated. First, we have a situation where not only people in La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroons who don't know their history, but we also have other African nations and members of the African Union who are supposed to be aware of what is happening in Cameroon and who are supposed to condemn what is happening in Southern Cameroon, so Ambazonia, who turn a blind eye and pretend that they don't know, because really, they don't know. I'll give you a case in point. When former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, was elected as AU chair, his foreign minister got up and wanted to emphasize some of the burning issues that were plaguing the African nations. He recited all kinds of things, including the case of Western Sahara that is still fighting for their independence, but did not mention the case of British Southern Cameroons or Ambazonia. That tells you that not only are some of these leaders and heads of states, or those who call themselves heads of states, completely ignorant, it also tells us that maybe they are accomplices protecting their fellow tyrants and dictators. So the onus is on us, historians, social scientists, the community at large, Ambazonians themselves, to educate the public, to make sure that people know that we are a country, that we deserve human dignity, that our rights must be respected as a sovereign nation. And so that is the reason why the history of Southern Cameroons is important. Growing up in Cameroon, I did not learn about the history of Southern Cameroons in Cameroon schools. I went through high school and the University of Yaoundé, did not learn about the history of Cameroon in the way that showcased our common history, the history of Southern Cameroons, and how we came to be joined or united with La République. And so that history was a truncated history. I had to pursue further studies to get to the crux of what was happening and how we ended up in a servitude position in our own country. And so that history is very important. Some of us were born during the time of that so-called independence. And we grew up knowing, either the Federal Republic of Cameroon or the United Republic of Cameroon, not really knowing and grasping the implications of what transpired. So, in a nutshell, we need to share knowledge about the history of Southern Cameroons so that people are aware, so that they understand why we must stand and fight for our independence. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Table, for that really vivid reason why every Amazonian needs to understand, not only understand, learn, and be versed with their history and how we got here. So amazing. Um, Dr. Lobati, I don't know if you want to have anything to add to that, reasons, what's the importance of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian history, and why do every Ambazonia in particular need to be fully knowledgeable, aware, and understand their history? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lady Casey. It's it's apparently if you don't know who you are and you don't know where you came from, you will probably not know where you are going because somebody else is going to define who you are and give you a name, and somebody else is going to be taking you and sending you somewhere you did not want to go or don't know you're going into. And I think that almost looks like the story of us, of this generation. At least our parents knew who they were and how they came about. But we, the children and the grandchildren, had no clue. Only a few were privileged to that information. And because of that, in order for us to understand and stand firm, our identity has to be established. And that identity that is established is not established because La République said so. It is established but because God gave us that identity. And it's established because the United Nations starting with the League of Nations, identified us as a group of people with a land, with a culture, with um, um, people. So therefore, we were a nation. And as we understand it, it puts us in a better position to know what we have lost and what we are about to lose completely, our identity. And then, if it will also help us to know where we can stand to take back what we have lost and to maintain what we already hold so that we don't lose it.
Oops.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I just like to say that I am so privileged to host these great Amazonian women on the horizon today. And I just have every Amazonian to listen carefully because these are accomplished women in their various fields of career and endeavors, and so intelligent and excellent. This is Amazonian excellence present on the horizon today. So as we continue the show, I would like to read your comments and your contributions on if you're watching on any of our social media platforms. So as we continue our conversation, Professor Bridget Hebo talks about, you know, how was Ambazonia, Southern Cameroons? What's the brief, you know, series of events that happened between 1953 to 1960, and why is it
Um,
necessary for us to be aware of this period of our history in Ambazonia? Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is a very interesting question that really focuses on the history of Southern Cameroons and the connections to the National Council of Cameroon and Nigeria, as in Southern Cameroons and Nigeria, because there was a British Southern Cameroons and there was a British Northern Cameroons. And so we really cannot jump into that 1953 without looking briefly at what transpired before that. You know that um, during the colonial period, um, you had trust territories and you had protectorates and you had German Cameroon, you had British Cameroon, you had Portuguese Africa, and all of that stuff. And somehow the lot of Southern Cameroons or British Southern Cameroons ended up in the hands of the British and the French, because the Germans, who had managed to acquire that protectorate status or have control over that territory, lost the war, World War One. During that period, they lost, and for that reason, their territories, including German Tanganyika and Togoland, were partitioned between the British and the French. And so Southern Cameroons, therefore, became the responsibility of the administering authority, the British. And because of that, circumstances, and I'm cutting a very long story short, circumstances
Yeah.
connected the Southern Cameroons to uh, uh, Eastern Nigeria. And I might paraphrase that Southern Cameroons or British Southern Cameroons as a sovereign nation is not one of those places that you can just dismiss and say, oh, this is, they're too small or they're too poor or they're this, they're that. They're bigger than many other countries in Africa and Europe. And so just putting that out there, it's not because of that that we ended up in Eastern Nigeria. And so the British, who were already administering Nigeria and had northern Nigeria and eastern Nigeria, had the brilliant idea, once they they perfected their indirect rule, which came into effect in 1922. Indirect rule, which was quintessentially the best way to govern on the cheap. They didn't want to be bothered by sending expatriates from England. They wanted to not only exploit the colonies and trust territories to their own advantage. And so they had indirect rule, which used local indigenous traditional rulers and authorities. And so they perfected indirect rule starting in northern Nigeria. And that was perfected and proposed by Lord Frederick Lugard. And so it became trendy that, okay, where they had, kings and queens, they would use them for tax purposes, for recruitment of labor, and so on and so forth. Additionally, what is known as British Cameroons was British Southern Cameroons and British Northern Cameroons. Okay. And so because they did not want to spend money having another governor in the Cameroons due to proximity to eastern Nigeria, they figured, okay, it will be cheaper for us to administer this territory from the Eastern House in Nigeria. And that is how the National Council for Cameroon and Nigeria came into being, where representatives from the Cameroons went to the house in Enugu, the Eastern House in Enugu, and funding for development and all kinds of things were now channeled to the Eastern House through the governor and the council. And decisions were made on how to spend that money and things like that. And so that already was a problem that most people really did not see clearly at that time. The fact that the British could not, as in other colonies or trust territories, assign a governor or a British administrative authority meant that they appended Southern Cameroons to the Eastern House in Nigeria and Northern Cameroons to the northern part of Nigeria for administrative purposes. To cut a long story short, after experimenting with this administrative approach over the years, our representatives, the Fonchas, the Monas, the Endeles, started really saying that discussions, because they were also already in the minority, discussions never favored them. Development policies did not transpire into action in Southern Cameroons. And so the funding, whenever funding was voted and channeled, development funding channeled through the Eastern House, it ended in Nigeria. Nothing really was accomplished in Southern Cameroons. And so you could see how our representatives and forefathers became disgruntled and did not see any reason why they had to be administered from Nigeria if the pocket of funding could not be shared equally amongst all those who were represented in the National Council of Cameroon and Nigeria. Now, if you go to Nigeria, you will see beautiful schools and universities. In fact, from primary schools, from girls' schools, Ilorin, to secondary school, Ondo, first girls' schools, to universities. Ibadan, Ife, Lagos, all those places emerged during that time frame. None of that emerged in southern Cameroons. And that is the reason why our forefathers were unhappy and decided that it was time for them to do something about it. And so the fact that they were in Nigeria and being administered at a disadvantage did not sit well. Additionally, prior to that 1961 that we have this independence that we're going to be talking about, Southern Cameroon's territory was this strip of land in the Gulf. You know, both British Southern Cameroons and La République that were part of that German colony ended up becoming trust territories, Class B trust territories. Class B trust territories, which means they had the same standards, they had the same privileges, they were supposed to have the same privileges, the same categorization. Like other countries in Africa, British Southern Cameroons, therefore, experienced that colonial rule in various ways. And that has extended to this post-colonial era that we're talking about. And so after World War I, both British Southern Cameroons and French Cameroon became the League of Nations mandates from 1922 to 1945. After 1945, the mandated territories, therefore, were placed under ITS, or the International Trusteeship System of the United Nations, as stipulated in Chapter 12 and 13 of that UN Charter. The ITS were placed for the specific objective that the trust authority was going to prepare them for self-governance or self-determination. It also had to do with the supervision of non-self-governing states designated as trust territories. So trust territories were therefore placed under separate agreements with the administering authorities, like the United Kingdom in the case of British Cameroons or France. The focus, therefore, on British Southern Cameroons is interesting, but we want to note that British Southern Cameroons comprise, like I said, of Southern Cameroons and Northern Cameroons, separated by a strip of land 72 kilometers or 45 miles along the Benue River. The basic objective, therefore, of the ITS was the promotion of that political, economic, and social and educational advancement of inhabitants of that trust territory and their progressive development towards self-government or independence. That article was Article 76 of the UN Charter. And so this is the trajectory that Southern Cameroons took from the time that the Germans lost the war to the time that they became the trust territory and ended up being administered in Nigeria before coming to the so-called independence. And so because of that administration or the administrative tactic by the British, you go from the League of Nations to the trust territory, and that trusteeship agreement was approved on 13th December 1946. And so I want to end here for now so that, or unless you want me to just continue and bring it up to 1961 independence, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think we would yeah, just take it up to there since we are getting to our the 1961. Our next angle we're coming from is
Okay.
the events from 1960. So just take it up to
Okay.
there. Thank you.
All right. Okay, great. And so, um, because we now ended up in Nigeria under dubious circumstances, because the British were really very cheap. They did not want to spend a dime, but they wanted to exploit Southern Cameroon's resources and manpower for their own good. And so it was okay for them to administer from Nigeria. But the Nigerian government itself did not do us right. The National Council of uh, uh, Nigeria and Cameroon took upon himself to not treat Southern Cameroons properly. Like I said, funding was a major issue. Other issues included marginalization and unfair treatment and things like that. And you could see the visible results of that treatment with all the schools, like I mentioned, on the Nigerian side. All the roads that were beginning to emerge, paved roads, were in the Nigerian side. Nothing in Southern Cameroon to show that, okay, we are being administered through Nigeria. We have the same pocket of funding. Why are we not having our own universities, our own schools, our own road system? Why are we only focusing on labor recruitment and all the other things that would serve the crown and not serve the people of British Southern Cameroons? That is what happened. And that is what led to a decision by our forefathers to walk out of the Eastern House in Enugu in that 1953. They walked out of the Eastern House, and that was the end of it. No blood was shed, no fighting, no attempts to catch them or kidnap them, as much as, you know, the premier in Nigeria tried to say, look, you are going like this, it will not be good, maybe you should stay so that we revisit this. It was too late because they had been trying over the years. And so they walked out and had the opportunity now from 1954 to 1961 to exercise self-rule. And they were the first in the whole of West Africa, or Africa actually, to exercise self-rule during this time period. The country had a democratically elected government with a built-in system of checks and balances that included the executive branch, headed by a prime minister, a parliament, a house of chiefs, and an independent judiciary. It also had the experience of conducting multi-party elections. That is how we now say, you know, Endele, we say Ngomjoa, we say Jango Foncha. These were people who were democratically elected. And so Southern Cameroons had experience with that. They were a beacon of hope for other countries and regions of Africa. And so to think that when it was time now for them to gain their independence, they ended up with independence by joining, or independence with a dubious vote of yes and we. It is one of the greatest misdates in history. It is one of the greatest eye openers of British and United Nations complicity when it comes to the question of British Southern Cameroons. And at the time in 1961, Alden, the British Council at that time had said that negotiating uh, independence by joining is not something that the British had power to do. The British were supposed to follow the UN Articles of Trusteeship
Mhm.
Agreement, Article 1514. They also had to follow Resolution 1608, and they failed to do all of that. And only God knows the reason. They did not do what they were supposed to do. And we ended up in that dubious circumstance that even after the Manfei Conference in 1959 or the Bamenda Conference in June 1961, all talking about the necessity to become full-fledged independence. They ended up in Fumban with an independence by joining, which independence by joining did not even allow them time to ratify any decisions that were taken in Fumban, did not give them enough time to follow through and implement all the international uh, uh, regulations that were put in place. And so, in essence, Fumban was a farce, for lack of a better word. Oh, I'm just trying to be polite. Fumban was a scene of crime because that was the last straw that put Southern Cameroons in the mess that it's in today. And the decisions from Fumban were never ratified. The premier of Southern Cameroons, John Go Foncha, did not sign any constitution. There is no treaty of union between La République, which had its independence 1st January 1960, and British Southern Cameroons that got its own independence on October 1st, 1961. Two states, separate independence days, ending up in this mess because the United Nations turned a blind eye and listened to the British, who gave free rein to the French to send their representatives to Fumban and blindside or hook wink Southern Cameroon's representatives. Not only that, even when they decided to create or form this federation with the stipulation that the form of the state shall never be changed. So it was going to remain a federation with two states of equal status. La République went ahead and changed it. And that is why we say that Fumban was a farce. And so I will end here for now.
Wow, thank
Thank
you. Thank you for that very succinct, vivid detail of events that have happened to Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. You know, when you were just talking, I was thinking this is the reason why, some people will say, oh, the British brought us to this place,
you.
they should participate, they should come and take us out, they should do this to France, they should. If you listen and you understood what Professor Bridget was just saying now, you will know that it was a you know a well calculated plan to put Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia in this place of these deplorable conditions with La Republique. And this is why we need to stand up for ourselves. Like there is no savior for Ambazonia out there. These things started way before we imagined. The sound of it is immediately after the Second World War that this whole plan to put Southern Cameroons under, always under something. It's not under Nigeria, under British territory, it's under
Mhm.
La Republique du Cameroon. Now we have come off that, we have come of age. And this is why we need to remind ourselves of these things daily so that when we are having outrage and when we are looking for people and soliciting for support. We do that with understanding and wisdom. We do that understanding the position of the other person. Because if our approach to, for example, support from UK as part of the Commonwealth, when we know the role they play with this depth of information that has just been passed, we will approach it with a different, would understand the bargaining power we have, and we'll go with that approach. So understanding and awareness of our history is too essential and too important. And we'll move now to the other aspect, and Dr. Lobati, I come on to you. You know, the plebiscite we have been talked about so many times in so many different ways, and what happened, what didn't happen. And we've had, documents and archives from our forefathers who either experienced these events, and who also have took part in it, who have heard from it, have seen that it was a farce. Um, we'll just go through and you read some of these documents about the plebiscites for us.
Okay, thank you, Lady Casey. I'm going to read an excerpt of Southern Cameroon plebiscite, the two alternatives. If I happen to go off, don't panic. I have a blank screen. I will come back. I will have to try and come back. But hopefully my sound and you can see me. Hopefully you do see me.
Yeah, we can.
Um,
Yes, we can see you and your sound is
great,
fine.
great. It's me. We're not seeing you guys because my screen is doing something, but I can hear you well. Let me read this. Southern Cameroon's plebiscite, constitutional arrangement for the implementation of the decision at the plebiscite. This was done before the plebiscite. It was done in 1960. Introduction. It's going to be a fascinating read. This is all being decided in the United Nations. The United General Assembly, after hearing the statement made by the Southern Cameroons and by the leader of the opposition in Southern Cameroon House of Assembly by Resolution 1352 14 of 16th October 1959, decided that arrangements should be made for a plebiscite to be held in Southern Cameroon, and that the two questions to be put at the plebiscite should be A. Do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independent Federation of Nigeria? B. Do you wish to achieve independence by joining the Independent Republic of Cameroon? On the 31st May 1960, the United Nations Trusteeship Council, by Resolution 2013-25, requested the administrative authority to take steps in consultation with the authorities concerned to ensure that the people of the territory are fully informed before the plebiscite of the constitutional arrangements which would have to be made at the appropriate time for the implementation of the decision at plebiscite. Let me read a little bit and then I will fast forward and go to another page. Uh, oh goodness. All right.
Go ahead.
Can you guys still on?
Yes, you're
Yes, we
on.
can hear you and we can see you clearly.
Thank you. Thank you. On this booklet is being produced in pursuance of the Trusteeship Council resolution referred to above and will be used to explain to the public of Southern Cameroons their constitutional implications of the two plebiscite choices. The implication of joining the Federation of Nigeria has been made clear in undertakings given by Nigerian minister. The trusteeship would be terminated at an earlier date, and Southern Cameroons would join the federation with the status of a full self-governing region, equal in all respects to the other region, all other regions in an independent Nigeria. In the Federation of Nigeria already has a constitution which provides for regional government, and it is therefore possible to set out in detail the constitutional arrangements that would be made if the plebiscite decision is in favor of the first alternative. This arrangement will be found on pages 7 and 12 below. So far as the implication of joining the Independent Republic of Cameroon are concerned, Mr. Funche, in his capacity as the leader of the political party advocating joining the Independent Republic of Cameroon, has consulted directly with the President of the Republic of Cameroon on the terms upon which the Southern Cameroons might be united with the Republic if the results of the plebiscite should be in favor of such a cause. I think you guys took note of that. Foncha had already. Her Majesty's government, as administering authority, have on several occasions enjoined upon those concerned the need for clarification of these terms. A number of meetings have taken place in Yaoundé, Douala, and Boya, at which Mr. Pointer and his colleagues have discussed this question with President Haijo and members of his government. These meetings have resulted in two joint communiques, which are reproduced on pages 13 to 15, and which the government of the Republic of Cameroon, in response to a formal request by Her Majesty's government, have authorized for publication. I will stop here on this one because this is just the introduction. You can see the communication already going prior to the plebiscite in preparation of how they would, it should, the plebiscite favor joining Cameroon, and the one for Nigeria, should that plebiscite favor going to join Cameroon. But on one occasion, in one of the meetings where Premier Jongu Foncha went to London, in one document, he asked, he said, why should he be the only one here? Where are the people of northern Cameroon? So even the issue of having separated us was illegal. We were not handed to the British as a trust territory as two entities. We were one entity, British Cameroons. So anyway, let me move. I would like to read something. Then I want to really zoom in on what happened and read a little bit on what were the terms for us joining La République de Cameroon. Okay, constitutional position of the Southern Cameroon in the event of it electing to become a part of the Republic of Cameroon. This is that communique. This is page 13. Considering that in the application of the Republic at the 14th session of the United Nations, a plebiscite is to be organized in February of 1961 to allow the people of Southern Cameroons under British trusteeship and the people of Northern Cameroons under British trusteeship to declare whether they wish to join the Federation of Nigeria or to be united with the Republic of Cameroon. The choice of word here is really interesting. We wish to join Nigeria or we wish to be united. Considering that in the event of the result of this plebiscite being in favor of reunification, the application of this reunification on a federal basis allowed for the particular conditions of each group could not be automatic but gradual. Considering that the representatives of the Cameroon Republic and the government party of Southern Cameroons vigorously reaffirmed the desire of their peoples to be reunited in one nation. Considering that the political heads have already met twice to examine the broad outlines of the constitution of the two federated states, they have, at the conclusion of their third meeting of the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th October 1960, decided to adopt the broad outlines of the Constitution, which they will adopt in the event of the plebiscite vote being favorable to them. Joining declaration. Okay, my Bridget, I think I'm not leading, but I'm not
Yeah.
coordinating. Lady Kate, as as we hear this, let's do this before I read any further, so I don't drag it too long and people don't lost interest. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Prof. Bree, before I hand over the mic to you, I was just listening to that reading and all the little Jangi meetings and stuff that happened before the plebiscite to see the combination. And
Yes,
this is exactly what I
Yeah.
was saying earlier. That we need this awareness, we need this information. And why I'm not calling it knowledge or knowing our history, and I'm calling it awareness because when you
Mhm.
know and it becomes a part of your consciousness, that's when awareness kicks in. When you are moving in that level of knowing, there's a way you will approach diplomacy. You know, a lot of people say, nothing happening in diplomacy. Not, we don't know where we are coming from. Because if we know the type of comments we make about diplomacy in the diaspora, we will not make such comments, we will not shout, make such loud and empty things. So this is so important that we pay attention so that when we are talking about diplomacy, who we are approaching, how we are doing it, we do that with knowledge and understanding of our circumstances, of how we got here, and our position political, socially, and economically. Professor Bridget, over to you. You know, I just want your comments on what Dr. Luvasi just read. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I was sitting here listening to it and really scratching my head because all of that jargon there doesn't even make sense, especially given that none of it was even respected. And so to have it written there. And so one party, the Southern Cameroons, is talking about unification. The other party, La République, is talking about reunification. And in my mind, I think if we use the term reunification in this context, it should be reunification of Southern Cameroons and Northern Cameroons, not
correct.
unification, not unification with La République, because La
Absolutely.
République is French. Southern Cameroons is British. So I don't even see how that made sense. The other thing is that really it was a clear case of, I don't know whether misappropriation of people's kindness is the right word to use, because our forefathers were really shortchanged, were really bamboozled by these words that don't even mean anything, and
Yeah.
allowed to fall into a trap that doesn't make sense. Because if they had been having those discussions, one of those discussions before that plebiscite was a clear agreement that there had to be that third option, full independence. And so to end up with a situation where they're rambling, they're going back and forth and talking about unification and reunification, and not bringing up that third option only goes to show the extent of British failure to do the right thing, of the UN's complicity in this quote unquote sense of omission, whether they are omitting by ignorance or deliberately. The bottom line is that third option was never brought to light in Fumban or made public for people to decide. And so it's really a moot point to even dwell on it, because it's just one of the many international laws that were broken. It's the beginning of all those international laws that were broken. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Let me read something else here, and this with joint declaration, because they have a joint declaration and a joint
Mhm.
communique. When I look at this, yes, Premier Jongu Foncha was the leader, but apparently it looks like the opposition was in darkness. The opposing party in the house, the House of Assembly, they were in darkness. Premier Jongu Foncha was doing this thing because that was his position of where he wanted it to go. That's what he was advocating. So he was meeting with Haido and leaving the opposition out. This is bizarre, and really, as much as they years down the line or decades down the line, they found themselves that they were duped and they tried to right wrongs and all the doors were shut at them at the United Nations. I think this
Yeah, you know,
humbles a lot. And
it is one can, I don't mean to cut you, but one can definitely say that, Premier Foncha was doing some of these things um on his own. But remember also that, they had these other meetings in Manthe and in Bamenda, that all of them, opposition party and Ngu Foncha's party, they had already agreed. And so subsequent discussions probably did not have to involve everybody. It was Premier, Foncha, and Ahijo, because they had already met in Manthe and Bamenda and decided what they wanted. And so the understanding is, if we all agree that we were going to make sure that we vote for full-fledged independence. Granted, some of the opposition wanted us to remain with Nigeria, but that was the decision that had already been reached.
Matt Richard, let me ask you this question. When was the
Mhm.
Manfe conference carried on and when was the Bamenda conference carried on?
The,
Because this
the
was
man,
early in October of 1960. This documentation
the document
of
that we are reading, yeah,
yes,
the Manfe conference was 1959.
69. Okay.
1959. And then the Bamenda Conference was June 26 to 28, 1961.
Nice.
So all of those were before what you are reading.
Actually, that means Bamenda conference was later because
Yes, Bamenda Conference.
this meeting between Foncha and Haijo was in October of 1960. So
Oh,
La
October
Republic
1960.
was just had not even been 1 year into its independence.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Got it.
Okay. Joint declaration. The representatives of Cameroon Republic and the government party of Southern Cameroons under British Trust territory met for the third time to continue their discussion on the projected constitution, which would govern the reunified Cameroon with a U. At the
Mm,
conclusion of these talks, the Honorable J.N. Foncha, Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon, His Excellency Amadou Haijo, President of the Cameroon Republic, and Mr. Charles Asale, Prime Minister and head of the Cameroon government, state that they wish to use every available means to bring to a successful conclusion the task of national reunification which they have set for themselves.
Hmm.
That we don't know what that was. That in
Mhm.
no case will the united Cameroon be part either of the French community or the British Commonwealth. Whoa!
Mhm. Could you
And
read
then
that
that
again?
in their part.
Let me read number 2 again. For the viewers,
Yes.
listen to this. That these were the promises made before we even had the plebiscite. That in no case will the united Cameroon be a part either of the French community or of the British Commonwealth.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3, that they wish to create a federal state whose institution would be broadly outlined as follows: the Federal United Cameroon Republic
Republic.
will be, will be a democratic state. It will have its motto, its anthem, its flag. The nationals of the federated state will enjoy Cameroonian nationality. The federal state in the first stage will have power to deal with matters listed below as as a minimum: public freedoms, nationality, national defense, foreign affairs, higher education, immigration, federal budget, post and telecommunication. A list of powers which would fall within the competence of the federal government in the second stage will be a set out in the constitution. The federal authorities will be composed of the federal executive, headed by the president of the republic, chief of the federal state, federal legislature consisting of a federal legislative assembly and a federal senate. Certain federal laws will only be enacted in such a way that no measures contrary to the interests of one state will be imposed upon it by the majority system of a second reading with a qualified majority.
Hey,
So the
Okay.
second
sorry, Dr. Lubati, can you just hold on there?
Hmm.
Okay, I will
There is just
finish.
so much to
There, there, there,
unpack.
there, there there really, really is a lot to unpack. Could you just skip
Okay,
the
I will
read?
pause.
Could, could you pause and just tell us who signed that document or who were the parties to the signature
Yes,
so that we can use
Sign
yes.
that as
Foncha and Haido. Foncha
just the
and
two of them,
Haido.
Imagine.
the two
Yes,
of them, and this is October 1960.
yes.
Okay,
Actually,
so
this
so
So,
actually they signed that document in October of 1960. Yep, the joint press and communique.
okay, so
so
that
that
was
is what
even
our
before.
fathers agreed with La Republique. So can you imagine what we got? It is far
That is what
from what was agreed.
that is what Foncha agreed with La Republique,
Yeah.
because if he is the only one who signed that document, then there is ample reason to imagine that others were in the dark, because others had in their mind, after the Mamfe Conference of 1959 and this hidden document that we're now reading, they had a meeting in Bamenda in June 1961, all geared towards that full independence, and maybe some leaning towards the union with Nigeria, as in the case of Endeli. And so this document is very important in showcasing the duplicity of John Funcha, the premier, who was now having these sacred discussions with Amadou Ahidjo. For whatever reason, the promises that were made first were not even honored. That is why even the Funcha now ended up
Regretted.
dejected and was resigning after the fact. If indeed he signed that document, then he created the mess. Because while the opposition and other parties were working towards getting that full independence, he was sneaking behind and making sacred arrangements and promises that did not even bode well. You know, and that is probably what threw the commissioner of Southern Cameroon, Sir James Robertson. That is what probably threw him off when in September he was coming to bid farewell to Southern Cameroon. He wasn't happy. So maybe you want to continue now before I get to Sir James Robinson and what he said in September.
Yes, I will get to that, but just before you continue, Dr. Lobati, I also want to add that just to what Professor Bridget have said, these were two groups. Foncha literally he regretted in 1999 he made this long interview, expressed his regrets. But that has already put us in this really terrible mess. But I also want to go to the point. I also want to go to the point of the agreement, because this is one thing I tell Southern Cameroonians, because I like to say Southern Cameroonian because some people think they are not Ambazonians, but the effects or the consequences that will affect a Southern Cameroonian will get to you. I used to tell people that the consequences of war does not select whether you are unionist or one Cameroon or federalist or Ambazonia. And all of you must have felt it by now. So now I'm also going to say this again, that as a Southern Cameroonian and from the Cameroons, and if you like, you go about blindly doing the business. Like I feel most of them, especially within the entertainment sphere, confusing their identity and their place of origin. Whatever you do, it is going to mean nothing to La Republic, to Cameroon, because even the agreement that was signed by Foncha behind the backs of the other Ambazonian leaders or Southern Cameroon leaders at the time was not one thing on that agreement was honored, not even one.
None.
This has been their plan since, and Foncha was naive, greedy, and selfish enough to fall in the plan of signing. And because he signed that, Aijo was able to build and oppress and create the power he created and transform into the 1972. But we're getting into that. So we should. That's why I keep insisting that knowing these things would help us know that standing up, fighting for our independence, to live in our identity and with dignity is the only option. Thank you, Dr. Nobati. You can continue.
Yeah. If I may comment as well before I even continue
Yeah.
reading, the
Yes,
fact
please.
that this agreement, hopefully, I doubt that Parliament was even aware of this. And if Parliament, maybe Foncha used a high-handedness of being the premier and thinking that all his party, even if they went to Parliament, they will agree with him, and so kept it in the dark. But
Yeah.
from all this documentation, Her Majesty's government was aware of it.
Of
And
course.
so they were aware of all what was going on. So when we always say that the instruments of government were passed to Haijo instead of Premier Foncha had already given them that position to take those instruments of governance. So that's why instead of the Union Jack that came down being handed to Foncha, it was given to Haijo's
Rahija.
government because of this agreement and communique. And they said it was published. So let's see how many of our people even read it, or even the opposition. Let's continue. Okay, certain federal laws will only be enacted in such a way that no measures contrary to the interest of the one state will be imposed upon it by the majority system. Second system of reading with a qualified majority. In the event of a conflict of laws between the federal state and the federated states, the federal law will prevail. In a non-federal matter, the authorities of each of the federated states will have exclusive competence. Each of the federated states will be ruled by a government and will have a legislative assembly. A federal court of justice will have its purpose to unify the judicial system and to act as the highest court of appeal of the federal state. Federal services will be established to carry out federal administration, legislation, or system of legislation in force will remain valid until the enactment of federal legislation. That was just number 3. Okay, let me see how many he agreed on. He agreed on 5 points. Let me go to number 4. Number 4, the federation will be created by the Cameroon Republic and the Southern Cameroons under British trusteeship. The two parties hope that the Northern Cameroons under British trusteeship will also enter into this federation, either as a separate state or as part of the Cameroons at present under British trusteeship. You see, so John Gufoncha, let me pause here. He's making this arrangement to also want to throw it on Northern Cameroons. Okay. In the event of the Southern and Northern Cameroons voting in favor of reunification, those entrusted with the responsibility of the affair of the unified Cameroon will, through the mutual agreement, specify the manner in which the populations of the Cameroons would be asked to express their opinion on the federal constitution. That was number 5. Mabry, comment.
You know, I'm looking. I'm in agreement with what Lady Casey said earlier, that none of those stipulations or point 1 or article 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were actually honored. Not even one, because if even 2 were honored, we wouldn't be here today. Not even one of them were honored. And the issue of equal privileges or subjugation or equality or whatever that was stated, I think article number 2 or number 3, is null and void, because from that moment till today, former British Southern Cameroonians have been a subject people, have been in servitude in La République du Cameroon, have been considered second-hand citizens. And not even Foncha could have seen this coming, because he assumed that because they were entering into whatever federation or unification or reunification, which reunification is so problematic, because that would have reunited even Northern Cameroons to La République, because they both are French territories. That did not happen. So why was it the case of Southern Cameroons to be uniting with La République du Cameroon? And why is it that honoring the simple fact that, okay, we're coming in as equals, therefore we will have autonomy at regional or whatever level of the federation, and certain things will be decided at the federal level. And so the understanding of Foncha and those who were supporting his idea was that he will still be a premier, a prime minister with importance in that union. And it didn't happen. And that is why he died a dejected and frustrated man, because he suddenly saw that he had been the one with the Monas and all these other people who decided to support the madness of joining La République, that all of a sudden they don't even have a voice. In the end, Ahidjo was making all the decisions. Ahidjo was the one doing everything. In fact, on the eve of that independence, Dr. Lobati was talking about the Union Jack being handed over to La République. Before that was even completed, and the British had conversations with Southern Cameroon's representatives about what was going to happen with British troops on the ground. And they said, at independence on October 1st, 1961, immediately after that independence, British troops were going to withdraw. And before that could even be completed in terms of the agreements and proposals and stuff, immediately the British withdrew the troops. Southern Cameroon did not even have a moment of respite or a moment to breathe. La République sent troops to occupy and invade Southern Cameroon. That was an effective annexation right there, open, overt annexation. Because their troops came in, did not honor point 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that you just read, an agreement that Foncha had so determined to uphold. But Ahidjo did not uphold his own end because they had a hidden agenda. Their agenda was to annex Southern Cameroon, was to exploit human capacity and natural resources for the benefit of not only La République, but France, that was pushing them in the back. That is why they had French representatives in Fumban, and the British did not have representatives in Fumban. And that is why the commissioner of British High Commissioner of Southern Cameroons in Boya in September 1961 was so unhappy, because they had been trying to make sure that the crown, as in the British crown, understands with Sir Eldon that Southern Cameroon was not theirs to just give out like that. And so when he came to Boya to bid farewell to the people of Southern Cameroon on behalf of His Majesty's government, and he was also the Governor General of Nigeria, speaking in his capacity as High Commissioner and Governor, he used 7 words that would be used to assess and judge British administration of Southern Cameroon during their 40-year rule. And those 7 words that he used were, let me see if I can find my 7 words that he used. I think there can be no justice without something. Where did I put it? Oh, not only did he emphasize on the fact that Southern Cameroon was not a territory that the British can ignore the UN instruments and the UN General Assembly instruments, but those 7 words were very crucial. There can be no justification of injustice. There can be no justification of injustice. Speaking of what transpired in Fumban. And those words demonstrate how the people of Southern Cameroon, a UN trust territory, became victims of a fueled decolonization process and how their country was annexed and recolonized instead of gaining that freedom that was so proposed in those documents that you are reading. It is a travesty of justice. Thank you.
Wow.
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 Thank you very much. And we'll move quickly to the next section of these great documents, which it's giving us such a depth and insight of what transpired in during our independence and pre-independence process, and some of these meetings and this joint letter signed by Foncha and Haijo, which have sealed our fate up until now, which La Republic have used the power that they have, like um, Prophet Bridget just explained how immediately the British forces left, the forces of annexation from La Republic to Cameroon came in, and we know the rest. We know what happened, how they start destroying our institutions and taking over administration and control of our territory. And we have suffered through that. And we have some key actors and key occasions and conferences that have happened during this period, where we were coming to the realization as people of Southern Cameroon that we have been recolonized, annexed by La Republique du Cameroon. Um, Dr. Lobati, could you carry on to reading?
Okay. Now, joint communique. The representatives of the government party of the Southern Cameroons under British trusteeship, led by the Honorable J.N. Foncha, Prime Minister, on their return from London, where they had talks with the United Kingdom Minister for the Colonies on the future of their territory, had on the 1st and 2nd December a fourth meeting with the delegation of Cameroon Republic, led by the President of the Republic, Amadou Haijo. Fourth meeting before plebiscite. The two parties were in full agreement that the United Nations General Assembly has stated with clarity the two questions which will be put at the time of plebiscite on the 11th of February 1961. Jesus! So it was supposed to be Aijo and Foncha decided on the two options. Let me move
Yeah.
on.
Exactly.
A. Do you wish to attain independence by unification with the Independent Federation of Nigeria? Or B. Do you wish to attain independence by unification with the Independent Cameroon Republic? Number two, that the two delegations, whilst in agreement with the interpretation of the second question, which was accepted in London, regret that the representatives of Northern Nigeria were not present at this conference, and asked, A, what immediately after the plebiscite and in the event that the people voting in favor of unification with the Republic of Cameroon, a conference should be held attended by representatives of Cameroon Republic and the Southern and Northern Cameroons. B, that this conference, at which representatives of trusteeship authority and possibly those of the United Nations would be present, would have as its aim the fixing of a time limit and conditions for the transfer of sovereign power to an organization representing future federation. This is a travesty, my Bridget. And
Honestly,
this
honestly,
is
I am
woo,
really at a loss. I'm at a loss for words. Just listening to that. My stomach is boiling, boiling. In fact, I always use
Me.
a modern day example. I say, imagine the British who carried their two left legs to run away from European Union. Imagine that
Thank
they were
you.
trying to vote for the exit that they now call Brexit from the European Union. And they are bringing the Germans and the Polish and the French to come and vote with them whether they want
Them.
to exit. It is not
Thank
done.
you.
It is not done. So why was it done in Southern Cameroons? If not
And
a travesty, like you say, why?
with Southern Cameroon, our situation is very uh sad because the premier at the time, Foncha, who was in full agreement, the document said I was in full agreement.
In full
He is
agreement.
the
In
one,
full
he
agreement.
literally single-handedly sold Southern Cameroon. That is my conclusion from
He
everything.
did.
Because
He really did.
whatever the Aijo gave him or promised him, he was only regretting in 1990, in 2000, no, 1990, no, 1999. He was only regretting
99.
in 1999 because he did not get what he was promised as an individual, not because he is sorry for the position
Exactly.
that he has put Southern Cameroons into. And that is the foolishness of so many Southern Cameroonians today. I mean, we can start from those who call themselves federalists. We can start from anywhere. They don't want to learn from Funcha's experience because La Republic has nothing to offer a Southern Cameroonian. It doesn't matter whether
Nothing.
you work at the
Nothing.
presidency, whether you are the minister of whatever and
Mhm.
whatever. La Republic can reduce you to zero at any given time. And why do you want to live with that degree of insecurity and uncertainty? Like I always mention, our only option, and it's only one option we have, is to fight the total restoration and liberation of Ambazonia. Now we are getting to understand how our situation has been manipulated to the extent where it was a deliberate attempt to keep us as slaves, as second class citizens, to annex Ambazonia. And we cannot know this and pretend that there is something to salvage with a relationship with La République du Cameroon. Absolutely nothing. Thank you, Dr. Winnie. You can continue.
Mm, mm. Just reading this communique tells me a lot that Premier Jongu Foncha at the time was single. The fourth meeting happened in December of 1960. Fourth meeting, which means that
Hmm.
the third meeting happened in October, which means two previous meetings had occurred in 1960 before we got to December. I am really taken aback that he was making this decision and hoping and counting that Northern Nigeria, we were all going to vote as a block similarly and join. And then he said he regret that the Northern Cameroon delegation or representation was not there. It's
Did
almost
not
like
come.
he took it upon himself as the premier of Southern Cameroons to make a decision and kind of deal with La République du Cameroon on behalf of Southern
Yeah.
Cameroons and Northern Cameroons. No
Yeah.
wonder Northern Cameroon smelled the roses and they ran off to Nigeria quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. 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 They saw it. They saw it coming. They knew that it was a very dubious and duplicitous arrangement. They decided not to even bother to show up at that meeting. So if Foncha wanted to go to his meeting by himself, that is what he did. Unfortunately, all the other key actors allowed him to do these things because I don't know whether they trusted him or they were tired of trying to convince him otherwise. I don't know. We have to dig deeper into some of those other classified documents to see what really transpired. Because for him to be running around making those decisions, you know, decisions that will impact everybody. It's not right. It's not right. And so those who had decided, like the Endelis who were maybe pro Nigeria, were one group. But you had the other group also that was for full-fledged independence. Where were they and why were they silent? Why did they let Foncha carry on like this? Why?
Foncha and Haijo agreed on the two options, silencing the option of full independence. Because he said they were in full agreement, signed Foncha, signed Haijo. This just blows my mind. This brings me
It's
to today's
outrageous.
reality. Mabry
You know,
and Lady
and so
Casey. It brings
Malabati,
me to another reality of today. All those people
my
running
concern.
to Canada to go sign secret deals without Ambazonians knowing that they are doing. Are they any
Thank you.
different from Foncha?
They are not. They are not any different. That is the point that I was trying to make, and I was going to actually start with those other opposition and those who were for independence. They just came out of a nasty experience with the Nigerian Eastern House, where they walked out. They walked
Yes.
away. When they got to these foolish negotiations or whatever discussions, and they realized that independence was not on the table, they made, weak demands so that they have time to read further documents or whatever, did not get it. What stopped them from walking out? What stopped them
Thank
from
you. I had
leaving?
asked that question
What
earlier on
stopped them from
ABC. What
leaving? They
stopped them?
should have walked away like they did in the Eastern House, and then La
Thank you.
République and the British or the French would have decided to sit down and have a true, meaningful, and inclusive discussion, because this is the
Yep.
life of Southern Cameroons that we're talking about. So why did they sit there? Why?
And
You
the
know,
problem with this time, it was that first of all, the British had already psychologically they have left Southern Cameroons to their fate. And we've heard a lot of things how British enabled La Republic to annex us. How true, we're not sure. But the point with I'm going to add to that, our forefathers during that period of uncertainty, whether we are joining Nigeria, becoming independence, or joining La Republic, and all the backdoor meetings and deals and things signed by Foncha, La Republic had already, for example, Aijo had already gone plan ahead. Aijo just needed that Fumba to happen for them to go to deceive the international community that they have now the right to go on
Exactly.
and implement what they have to implement. So at this juncture, Southern Cameroon leadership, we did not have an army. We only had police. So La Republic has already
Mobile wing.
come in as soon as the British army left with their army. And there's no way we don't have an army and we want to go and start and fight. And our parents believe, remember, they gathered themselves, went to UN to go and say this thing is not right. But then La Republic had already, because they had a plan from the beginning and they were doing everything to fit their narrative. So and their arguments. So they've gathered all the documents with the worst one signed by Foncha, that everything has gone, including the plebiscite vote, which was certainly a total farce as well. They gathered that
This is
document and
before plebiscite, Lady Casey. Let me interject here. Sorry. All this agreement is before even the plebiscite in 1961.
before the plebiscite.
This is agreements before, hoping that when the plebiscite favor them, both Northern Nigeria and Northern Cameroons and Southern
Southern
Cameroon
Cameroons.
will just walk into this agreement that Foncha has made with La République de Cameroon. And so
yeah, and
let me say they agree. So why then did La République, when it came to our independence by joining, why did they reject us being independent? Why did they not vote for it if it was not dubious? If they
It is
did
that is
not
dubious
know,
because
exactly the same thing.
from the get-go, they've always had bad faith. Ahijo was a
Yes,
conniving son of a, conniving bad
exactly.
faith. They had the
Yeah,
intention
yeah.
to do that. And so they were going to use all the tricks in the books. And unfortunately, our people fell for
And
it.
they're still
And
doing
it's the
it.
same
Our
thing that
people fell
they
for
continue,
it. That is
the same thing that they're continuing to do today. Because now that that has happened and we find
thank
ourselves in
you.
this situation, you're going to ask ourselves,
Yeah,
what are our parliamentarians doing in La Republique? What are they doing there?
Exactly.
absolutely.
Because this war will be over if they walked out like our forefathers did in Inugu, walk out of the house, walk out of parliament, and it will be over. But no, it's all about greed. It's all about greed, where a few
Correct.
people think they can manipulate the rest of the people, come up with dubious conclusions and reasons to stay or to do this and that,
Mhm.
and then keep their fingers crossed that miraculously we will be protected as a nation. No, it doesn't happen that way. It
To
doesn't.
be honest, the Canada whatever meeting is a kind of a similar issue that we
Thank
had.
you.
Mm.
You had some officials from La Republic trying to broker deals with some so-called Ambazonian independence leaders, and this is a way that La Republic has always done. And what pains me is that these people know these things better than us talking about it here, but yet they still choose to fall on La Republic's trap because they have not even changed their tactics. If you look at how La Republic has operated, how they have divided Southern Cameroonians, how they have oppressed Southern Cameroonians, they have been very consistent in oppressing, brutalizing, and
Oh yeah,
threatening and frightening
yeah.
our people. They have been consistent, and our people still go about behaving as if they don't know where they are. And that is the most
No, that
sad
you know,
part.
it is very sad because I think they're still hearing the echoes from Zeda Hijo Foncha
Mhm.
during that 1961 era, and the issue of being nice to meet our brothers in this vivre ensemble, or coming together and unifying. That is the madness that some people are still holding, over our heads. It is nice to finally meet our brothers. Which brothers are they talking about?
Which brothers?
Is that how you treat
Brothers?
your brother? By killing them, by
No.
tormenting and raping children, by looting and not even caring for the nation that you are supposed to be a leader of? I really don't understand it. I don't understand it. Sometimes, you think of these things and your head might explode. So we'll see
Yeah,
what
Dr.
happens.
Lobati, do you
For
want to
me,
just read to a nice conclusive part, that because we know this conversation is so deep and so long that we could go on and on, and we try to, that's the
Yeah,
reason.
no,
I don't know if anybody read history. There's a reason that we learn past events for so that we would prevent, even though we have seen
that
our
is the,
people
that
repeating history a lot. But
exactly.
now we'll just read to a reasonable conclusion or reasonable end of this aspect of the conversation about this event of our history, this deeper narrative of our history that has happened, and this discussion, because this is going to be in three parts. And this is just the first opening of this conversation about where we are coming from. And we have seen clearly how events have happened and how La Republic have consistently been who they are. And now we are repeating and continuously saying this thing for our people to know that with La Republic, there is no hope for a Southern Cameroonians to do great things in this world, unless from La Republic or within that La Republic relationship, or operating as one with La Republic. So you just read it to a nice end that we're able to continue next week, this conversation. Then we can move to the second part of our
okay.
discussion today. Thank you.
I think
Okay.
the best way I finished the
Mhm.
communique, the joint
Okay.
communique and the joint agreements with La République. But if I
Mhm.
may extract something for that, and maybe at some point in time, somebody who is doing a real research and wants to compare what was put on the table remember, this document is not this conversation that we are reading about, or is happening now in the United Nations, where the committee that is working on all this they are looking at what Nigeria is offering and what
Mhm.
Gufuncha and Haijo have agreed on. And then what they see already, because Nigeria already had a template of federation, so it was easier. And then they actually stipulated things even more extensively about Nigeria, if we had to join Nigeria. But going back, if anybody doubts that La République du Cameroon was not dubious, the promises they gave Foncha failed. What they did to Ngomjua failed. What they did to SC Mona failed.
Fail.
What they did to Benin Fallon. All each one of these people were lied to. They may have enjoyed a little benefit for a brief moment, but they did not acquire for their people what was needful and what was helpful for their people
Yeah.
as a nation and as a sovereign independent nation. It was never acquired. So with this
It is.
really being, I am appealing and also putting a heat and a warning to our other brothers and sisters who may call themselves this, decentralized um, um, Cameroonians who want decentralization, federalists, unionists, and even our so-called Ambazonian brothers and sisters who are running and doing backdoor deals in Canada, um, uh, and also other backdoor deals with La Republique. Take a warning. Read this documentation if you can lay your hands on it and see all the agreements that were made, and not one of them was fulfilled. You cannot trust a thief and a liar if they keep stealing from you and they ask you to give you the keys of your front door and your bedroom, and you think that they will keep your money and all your stuff will be safe. I don't trust them.
Thank you.
Lady,
And Professor Bridget, do you want to just add up and round up this section of our discussion? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lady Casey. Thank you, Malobati. This is really interesting in terms of really showcasing what happened and why history is very important. Lady Casey mentioned that the reason we study history is not only to avoid mistakes of the past, but we do study history to not only know about ourselves and learn about what happened, but also avoid those mistakes as a way of moving forward. And so, if we cannot do that as a human community, then we have a problem. If we cannot understand the importance of human relationships and the dignity of people, if we cannot even understand what it means to be a nation or what is popularly known as a country. Now, Ernest Gala, in his seminal work, Nations and Nationalism, gave a nice description of what a nation is. And he said, a nation is formed if and only if the people share a common culture, share a common language, and are willing to stay together. And so today we find ourselves in a situation where, thanks to the UN or the lack of the UN instruments, you have people who have been thrown together who were not supposed to be together. You have others who were separated, who were not supposed to be separated. And the late Ali Mazrui said this in one of his writings, that because of the UN, there is so much chaos in Africa, because of those people who have been thrown together when they're not supposed to be together. And in the case of Southern Cameroons, we see that Southern Cameroons is bigger than many countries on the West African coast or even East Africa. And so our fight is a genuine fight. It's a fight that showcases the fallacy of the Fumban discussions. It is a fight that showcases the overt annexation of southern Cameroons. It is a fight that highlights the fact that all those nations that were considered trust territories, like southern Cameroons, have all gained independence. So why is our case different? And why are our people being persecuted and killed and tormented simply because they want what is right? They want what is due for them. They want to exercise their human rights. And so I think I can only say that the fight will continue, and this will segue nicely into our next topic, which is the genocide and the killings. It is a continuation of the modus operandi of not only La République, but France, because they
Mhm.
copied everything from France, all the bad things. Now, and I'm not saying that France is all bad. They do implement good policies in their own countries. You know, they're using our resources to build their roads, build their good schools, build their good hospitals. So at least they are doing something good for themselves at our expense. The problem is La République that has dragged us into that mess cannot even copy the good things from France. They're waiting for us to remind them, as Southern Cameroons, those who are always at the forefront of fighting for human rights and decency. They're waiting for us to say, oh, look, you need to build roads. You need to build hospitals. You need to do this. And when people want to even make suggestions, they are disappeared or eliminated. That is how we got here. And so this is an existential fight for us. It's not just a war of independence. We have to till the last man standing, if need be, because that's the only way that we can get this done. We have seen that the international community is talking with tongue in cheek, waiting and watching to see the level of our resolve. And so we're here to say that that resolve is only increasing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Vegetable. Thank you so much. We are staying the course. Yes, every Ambazonia should join the Ambazonian women to stay the course. In summary of what Professor Bridget have just said. And yes, we are talking about the continuous killing of Ambazonians, our children, innocent Ambazonian children, by La République du Cameroon. And this has been going on for over almost 70 years now. If any Ambazonian don't know, the killing of Southern Cameroonians is only noticeable to many now because of the current war, which escalated in 2017. But any Ambazonian, any Southern Cameroonians who have suggested or even say anything that a Southern Cameroonian should be treated with respect and dignity within the Cameroons have been killed. When we hear they have disappeared, they have been killed. We know every time we come up request for something, they protest, how many of our people will be killed from multipartism to the university. We know how many of our people have been killed. So the killing of Southern Cameroonians by La Republic Turks in form of army and gendarmes did not start in 2017. It has escalated in 2017. And I just want to come to you, Dr. Lobati. What do you think La Republic over these years, since they took over the fraudulent annexation of Ambazonia, continuously kill our children and grandmothers and people of Southern Cameroons who just want to live with dignity?
Ah, it's a bleeding. If you're a mom and you're a grandmother or you are a sister or a brother or a child, and you hear that your family members are just They've just been gunned down. They live in constant fear of the bullet, or for better word to say, stray bullets, for those who think they
mm,
can support a system that is evil, and even expose their other brothers and sisters to the military and paramilitary and undercover um, security people of La République de Cameroon, where people are indiscriminately picked up and as well killed and detained without trial. It's really a sad thing. This type of killing, I think, on the last show I was on the Horizon, I talked about the dehumanization of our people, which is
Mhm.
part of the stages that deals with genocide. We have way past that point of genocide. The discrimination and the started happening day one, when we thought our fathers thought they had joined,
mm,
and the lies continued. The foundation was faulty. A federal constitution that was never ratified by the House of Assembly of Southern Cameroon. Never ratified that constitution. Neither did they ever ratify a treaty with La République de Cameroon. And so all the falsehood that has been carried out, La République is only doing one thing. The one thing they know is what they did to what they call the UPC, and what they had termed the maquisards,
ma-
and our people don't understand why they were just butchering. And all this was even before independence of La République, which meant that that system of scorched earth policy and killing that France had perfected in its colonies, La République has been using on our people. And of course, the lawyers and the teachers went on the streets. The population joined the people because they got a little sense to understand that what was being done. Thank God to, I would say, social media that exposed our people to more. And they could see that things are not the same, like they have been under this fear, this bubble of fear. Every time they need to eat something, they have to beg and be killed. And our children, the reason I'm using eat something, I'm using it figuratively. When they needed multipartism or pluralism to go back, because we had it before, where if you read most of that document, there are other documentations on constitution and other things that happened during some of these meetings and Fumban conference. But when they needed to go back to multipartism, guess what? It's the blood of Ambazonians or Southern Cameroonians that was spilled on the ground before
mm,
La République in shame, as a result of the Berlin Wall was coming down, and many things were happening around the world. So now they say, okay, well, they better play nice by saying, no, nothing happened, nobody was killed, and all this happened. And so we do not refuse multipartism. The blood of our people was spilled. Whenever there is something going on that is of national interest that will benefit even La République citizens, it is usually the Southern Cameroonians that take the forefront to
mm,
advocate for it, and it is usually the blood of our people. But today, because we have understood our identity, that is why we understand why we have always been different, are willing to take the risk to get what we need or what we want, irrespective of what is going to happen. La Republic, in this regard, they continuously are killing. But you know what? Every blood that is dropped on that soil will not continue to, it will continue to cry out, will not stay silent, it will not stay quiet. it will cry out. And when it cries out, guess what? As there is a sovereign judge and God in heaven, we will have our human rights, we will have our sovereignty. It is better for them to give it today, because just as they may kill 5, 10 of our people, they too are also suffering losses. They can look. Every former French colony has rejected France in some capacity, except La République. And do you know why?
Yeah.
It's because La République citizens have the Ambazonian citizens or Southern Cameroon citizens that they can suppress so that they feel a little better about themselves. The others have seen
Facts.
that, hey, this suppression is France manipulating and putting leaders on them, forcing leaders on them, and protecting them for their own interests, why they are losing. But La Republic citizens have not realized that, because they have us as the pawn. We are their pawn. So they think they are better off. It's better for them to get up. It is better for La Republic du Cameroon to quit and withdraw and get back and go to a negotiation table, so they can still call back the Swiss government. I'm sure they'll be willing. They cannot be playing around and thinking that they'll find somebody that will favor them, and the massacre and the killings continue. It's sad that we continue to see this, but I will also blame the Red Cross International. Why have you not classified this problem as a conflict to give it the international status that it deserves?
Mhm. Professor Bridgetto, do you have anything to add to that? And why do you think this is continuing? And if you think it would end anytime soon, this killings of.
Um, well, um, Dr. Lobati has said a lot about those killings and has posed a really good question to Human Rights Watch. I will add that question needs to go to all the international organizations that are supposed to be functioning in La République du Cameroun, and to the African Union for pretending not to see that the killings in southern Cameroons have reached genocidal proportions and have even gone beyond genocidal proportions. And just for a recap, we have more than 40,000 people who have been killed already in this struggle. You have over 500 of our villages have been burnt down. And that is classic modus operandi of La République, copied from the French and the British, I might add. Because if you go to the archives in Public Records Office in London, or Kew Gardens, or Bibliothèque de France in Paris, you see hearth burning as a form of punishment. That is what they learned from their colonial masters. They know that burning people's homes as a revenge, because they are so weak, they cannot even fight the real fighters. A trained group that calls themselves a national army or La République military cannot face our ARFs. And so what do? They go on a rampage out of frustration, killing innocent people, raping children, burning villages. We have more than 1 million or 1.5 million children of school age deprived of education because they cannot go to school in those circumstances, even when La Republic government swears to protect them. They themselves turn around and killed our children in schools so that they can blame it on the Ambazonian restoration forces to hoodwink the international community. You have more than 10,000 widows and more than 15,000 orphans. And so between the refugees and the IDPs, the international community, the Human Rights Watch, all these democratic observers, they know what is happening in Southern Cameroon. They know what La Republique government is doing. The question is, why are they slow to concrete action? And I'm trying to be positive and think that, they're giving La Republique a long rope to draw. And sometimes when they give you a long rope to draw, you draw the rope so much you tie it around your own neck, because that is the position that La Republique finds itself in now. They're killing our children. So many killings. We have recently Babanki, where more than 12 young boys were killed. You have the Mautu killings in Fako. You have the killings in Boyo. Endless killings from the time that this war started. And so if you see that they're trying to kill all the young men, ages 12 and above, you're thinking, what are they planning now? In their hopeless, frustrated, foolish mind, they think if they can kill all the young people, there will be no adult men or women to grow up and fight them in the future. And so that is the logic and reasoning of a dying horse that is trying to give its last kick, because it doesn't even make sense. They cannot win this war militarily. And so if they can come to their senses and meet us on the table, then we can discuss as good neighbors, because it's a waste of time. All their own partners, from France to other international organizations that were supporting La République, either because of special interest or whatever, are now tired, because they've told La République and the Biya regime that you cannot win this war against, quote unquote, your own people, especially when they are right. La République has no legal standing, has no social standing, has no whatever standing in terms of the case that we have. And that is also part of the reason why they're so terrified of coming to that table. And so they're dancing around the issues. They're sending foolish people to Canada on multiple trips to do this and to do that. Or they do the fake attempts at, quote unquote, national dialogue, which in essence was a national monologue. The long
Yep.
and short of this is they cannot kill all Ambazonian or Southern Cameroon's children, nor are they even qualified to give Southern Cameroon's special status or decentralization or whatever. That era is over. There is no way that Southern Cameroons will want to join or be the quote unquote brother that they were thinking of in 1961. How nice it is to meet our brothers and unite. No, if you are someone who cares for your brother or sisters, you wouldn't be killing them. You wouldn't have killed Baby Mata. You wouldn't have killed Mami Api. You wouldn't have allowed your terrorist agents to drop a baby in boiling water, in boiling oil in Widikum. You wouldn't do all those things, and you won't continue to kill young people, even as you are going around spewing garbage about decentralization or encouraging people to drop their arms and join DDR. DDR, which has now turned into another killing machine, because all those boys who are supposed to have dropped their weapons and joined DDR, nobody knows where they are. The few that come out are now used as spies to go identify other young men to be killed. And so La Republique is losing, and they know it. So if they can come to their senses or convince the so-called leader that they have, who goes around farting and falling and stumbling around the world, making a mockery of the presidency, then they will know that the end has come. And like some of them have already said, they should start getting used to life without Southern Cameroonians, because we're done fighting the battles for them. We have our own battle to fight. We have our own survival to take care of. And that is it. But the killings of our children in this genocidal proportion has to stop. And that is why Having said all of this, we also want to make sure that the international community knows that they have something to say. They still have something to say, and they should be, hopefully, on the side of justice so that tomorrow they are not held accountable. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. And listing all this continuous killing of our people. Dr. Lobati, you also said how sad this is and what we need to do. And I just want to, in your own perspective, discuss, when do you think this would end? And before you go there, if you can add to anything Prof have said, and you can round up with that.
Thank you. When this will end will be when La République will come to the uh, La République citizens will come to their senses
Mhm. Yeah.
or and start demanding that their government pull out their troops because many of their own too are dying in the battlefront. Or when their president, who is 90 something year old, will also die and they will hide it from them, and then suddenly they'll find out that somebody else has been imposed on them by a few people who will come out and say, "Hey, oh, we throw our motion of support on, we throw our motion of support on, we throw our motion support on on so. We of this Fundi, we of this region or division, we throw our support of the CPDM of this." When they wake up from sleep and find out that a few people have already made a decision, of course, there's never true election in that country. They have a sham, they have a pretend. Even the we and yes that they call reunification was all sham. So when they will sit and they will see that that will be happening, then maybe they will come to their senses. When we would have shut our borders and some of them realize that there's no way they can come in and go out, or those who are on our side cannot cross over, or those on that side cannot come in and they have their own civil war, then maybe they'll come to their senses. One of those three ways, or the international community steps in and say, enough is enough. Let's stop this. We're sending peacekeeping troops. As of the time specifically that will happen, nobody can tell you. But one thing we know is it's very close. It is not too far. But the one way we can end this the fastest is for all those self-imposed fake parliamentarians that the people did not vote for you. They brought La République army to come and vote for you in your own areas, pretending that the citizens voted and stuff boxes that they voted for you, and you are sitting in the parliament of La République de Cameroon because they give you whether it's money for Pajero, give you money for you to be able to buy whatever you can buy. Once you realize that the value and the institutions of your people is more valuable than your own personal gain, and you walk back, you will be a hero and this war will end faster. Lady Casey.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, this has been such a roller coaster of conversation. We have started from our history and we are not done with that yet. And we've stopped at 1960. We are not even at 1961 just yet. And this would continue, that aspect of the conversation would continue on Friday. And I just want to add about the continuous killing of our people and all those who are aiding, all the Southern Cameroonians aiding La République du Cameroon in this in killing our people. Because if you are accusing a brother and call La Republic military to come and kill them for your own suspicion without any proof of what is happening, then you are aiding them. You are also part of that killings. Um, this is the part where I would say that as a Southern Cameroonian, it doesn't matter what you do within the La Republic. La Republic is always going to focus on their interests. They are always going to focus on their aims and objectives. And that's to ensure that they continue control of Ambazonia territory. That's only to also make sure that they hold Ambazonia in place and they continue keeping people of Southern Cameroons under their control and without giving us any chance to live in dignity as humans in our God given territory. So, as we round up today, I implore every Ambazonian, every person from Southern Cameroon to understand that the times are different for a Southern Cameroonian. But La Republique is maintaining their stand in continuously killing, destroying anything that is of value to the Southern Cameroons. And we cannot continue to watch and allow this happen. So I would just like to ask Professor Bridget Table to give her conclusive statement for tonight and followed by Dr. Lobati as we round up the show for today.
An option, an option to end the plight of our people if La Republique can come to their senses, as you say. And also a quick reminder to our people and everyone concerned and interested in the freedom and independence of Ambazonia or British Southern Cameroons that this war is not about self-interest, nor is it about politics for politics' sake. It's a war of independence. And the important thing is to identify our enemy. Our enemy is not other Ambazonians. Our enemy is not the young man or the young woman whose house has been burnt and they decide to take a peace plan and go down the street to protest and get killed or thrown in jail. Our enemy in this war is La Republique, and that is where everybody's focus should be. The government of Cameroon, the Biya regime, and their accomplices are the enemies. And so the enemies are not other Ambazonians. Granted, you have other Ambazonians who are accomplices, but that is a different story. So those who are ready to continue the struggle and to continue to win this independence should remember that the enemy is La Republique and La Republique agents, and to make sure that they stay the course, like we are staying the course on the Horizon Voice of the Ambazonian Women, and to also know that whatever La Republique is doing, the whole world knows that they have illegally, since 1961, occupied southern Cameroon's territory. Theirs is an illegal occupation. And so the sooner they pack out and leave, the better. Ambazonia is free. Ambazonia will get that dream that was deferred, the dream of freedom, the dream of happiness and prosperity, the dream of a peaceful living. We have our interim government working hard to make sure that we accomplish our goals. And so I'm calling on everyone, friend, supporter, guest, well wishers of justice, of freedom, to join British Southern Cameroons in this quest for freedom. Thank you so much. And a
Thank you.
good gun salute to our ARFs, because they are the ones putting their lives on the line for us to have that freedom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Lobati, for your closing remarks for today.
I want to thank everyone who has been watching today and for the little tidbit of our history and some of the shenanigans that we've observed and seen, which is not a surprise to us that we were able to really delve into some of the agreements that Premier Foncha and President Haijo did in the 1960s prior to the plebiscite of February 11, 1961. Um, we delved into that, saw some of the agreements that were never implemented, never agreed, which were only there as a window dressing to lure Southern Cameroonians to come into what their leadership, actually, the ruling party's leadership, into pushing forward to get that agenda of bringing them, and also even recognizing that Haijo and Fonja had to agree on the two options before it ever really got to the place where our people wanted that third option, which would probably have won the other two hands down if they had that third option. And with that said, I think as the horizon moves on, in looking at some of these historical documents from archives, we will also realize that the constitution that was the sham of Fumban, called the Constitutional Conference, you will see a lot of other things in there too that will make shake your head and say, why were they rushing? Why were they pushing? And why did they do this without help? And even when some people were crying, we need more time, it was denied them. So don't miss subsequent horizons that will be coming on. Today was the special day as a result of we had a technical glitch. Lady Casey alluded to that earlier. But in regards to the killing, I want to appeal to every Ambazonian, if I may say this. If you look at everyone that has been betrayed and continues to betray, there's, there is no hope for you if you continue to betray your brothers and sisters and get them to the place where they are slaughtered or maimed, or they have to flee because you have betrayed them and they don't feel even a little bit safe at home and the home front. Then just know that what goes around will come around. You will find yourself in deeper waters tomorrow because you cannot sleep at night. Even those of you in DDR, I'm not even sure they let you guys watch some of our programs. If they do, or you can, please do watch it and take our advice. Even while you are there, if you think it's a place of no return, guess what? People can flee and jump out of La Republique jail and escape, find your way of escape and get out. There are many ways of escaping. Get out. You don't have to comply. Did you guys just think, if you guys remember one of these guys that went to DDR and was supposed to have been helping bring people, what's his name? You know, some people, I just try to forget their name so I can move on. And he was crying that they've been duped, they've been lied to, and all the promises, nothing has materialized. You just heard from what we said today. Nothing ever materialized when it came to Fonja, it came to Mona, it came to Joa. He was eventually killed. If you look, Abendon was killed. Many of our leaders that stood up for what was right were killed.
Yeah.
Guess what? History, those who stood, when we come home, we will have a memorial stone of honoring all those who stood for the right and justice, even if they were killed prematurely. I will appeal that you take care of each other and protect each other. And I know tomorrow is Country Sunday, and just be watchful, careful. You see strange and new people around yourself, alert others and be careful. We don't want more massacre. And mothers, watch out. Parents who are around and still stay at home front, just caution your children, give them the advice you can. You cannot fight your family. You cannot win against your family. Even the so-called funds. If you need to stay away from going to the palaces because the fund is the one betraying us, stay away. You don't have to go. You don't have to go. Even if the fund is your dad, even if the fund is your uncle, even if you hold a position in the village council, in protest, you can also protest at that small level. If you can protest at a small level, then you are able to protest at a bigger level because everything starts small. For those who have lost their loved ones, we pray that God will comfort you in your heart, but they will not be
Amen.
forgotten.
Amen.
And for those who have been injured and tho- and some of you are in hiding, we pray God's speedy recovery and healing for your bodies. And for those of you who have been pretending that you are with the restoration forces and you are rather harassing the civilian that you're supposed to protect, amend your ways and change. And for those of you who are real and you want to stand and see that we get to Boya, kudos, more grease to your elbow. And for those of you who have been duping people and say, oh, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do that, but you just dupe and extort money and you play games amongst people, you say, after all, how we don't see more job we. You are no different from La Republique because all La Republique wants to do is extort the wealth that you own and eat and while you starve and your children starve. Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just want to thank both of you. Thank Professor Bridget Tebo for joining us today on the Horizon. I want to thank Dr. Winnie Lobati for always making time to join me on the Horizon and be part of the Horizon program. And really thank my guests because it has been such a pleasure hosting women of excellence, women with intelligence and depth in our struggle in the Ambazonian liberation war with such tenacity, such conviction, and with such purpose. It is such a pleasure, such an honor, and I really thank you all both for the program today and for making it such an educative show. And I also want to thank our audience and all those who are watching um, worldwide. We want to thank you for joining us on the Horizon today. Um, also, join us on Friday. We'll be right back to continue with the conversation of our journey to liberation of Ambazonia. I also want to thank our producers and technicians for making this show despite all the glitches and for eventually pulling it through to the end. Thank you very much. Thank you. I also want to greet our restoration fighters at the home front. Patriotic salute, distinguished comrades. You all have a great evening and see you next time on the Horizon. Bye bye.
not a son of man that should repent what he has promised. He will surely do for you. He's not a man that he should lie, not a son of man that should repent what he has promised. He will surely do for you. I will overturn, 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 overturn it all for good. God is overturn, overturn, overturn it all for good. I will overturn, 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 overturn it all for good. God is overturn, overturn, overturn it all for good. No weapon formed against you shall ever prosper. It's working in your favor. It's working for your good. It's working for your good. No weapon formed against you shall ever prosper. Prosper. It's working in your favor. It's working for your good. Over, over, over. Turn it. 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 Over, over, overturn it all for good. Over, 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 overturn, overturn it all for you. God is overturning, overturn it all for you.
You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.